This video we're going to look at slashing with a knife versus thrusting or stabbing. Hi guys, Paul from Warrior Tactical Systems here. In this video we want to talk about slashing versus thrusting. What's better? Well, instead of what's better, first let's look at what's our goal. Our goal in using a knife in a defensive encounter should be to stop the threat. So how do we stop the threat? We can do it with pain compliance. If the person just feels the pain of the knife, the fear of the blade even, and runs away, then that's great. But we don't want to rely on that. So the other part would be affecting their function, whether that's through blood loss or damaging their structure in a way they can't continue. We're affecting a person that is maybe on drugs or highly motivated, and pain is simply not going to stop them alone. So one thing to keep in mind, that a knife is not a less lethal tool. Okay, so we don't, well, I just cut their arm because I wasn't justified in using deadly force, so I was just going to cut their arm. No, you can't do that. We already have a video on that. But that doesn't mean you can't injure to a degree. It doesn't mean I have to kill the person. If I can injure them to stop the threat, then my mission is accomplished. I've stopped the threat. So, for example, if someone were slashing at me with a broken bottle, and I lean back, step back, and cut their arm, they drop the bottle, run away, go to the hospital, get stitches, nobody dies. I call the police and let them know what happened. Then that's a win-win. I survived. I didn't have to kill anyone. The blade has an influence. The design of the blade is going to have an influence on your technique for obvious reasons. We'll discuss a little bit more about the weapon itself in a few minutes, but keep in mind that we're talking about the average knife that somebody could pick up, carry, or average improvised weapon. We're not talking about Bowie knives, great big, short swords basically. We're talking about practical knives. Now, some of the pros of the slash are the cons of the thrust and vice versa. So, with one of the major pros of the slash is it requires less accuracy. If the person's hand is moving through this sector and I slash into that sector at the right time, I should intercept their hand at some point and hit it and, cause some damage. Now, with a thrust that would be much more difficult. You have to have more accuracy. If that hand was down here moving around and I have to thrust into it, it can be done, but I just got to get that right. I have to have that accuracy there. So a big pro of the slash. You also have a better chance of completely transecting whatever it is you're trying to cut, whether it's a blood vessel, tendon, ligament. If you slash hard and deep, you may cut clear through the blood vessel, which is going to cause more damage, or clear through the tendon or ligament, or damage the muscle significantly enough that it severely affects their structural integrity and function of that limb. Where if I just thrust and pull out, obviously that wouldn't cause near the structural damage that a slash would. Now, you can mitigate that by thrusting and then slashing your way out. If I thrust in and slash my way out, I'm more likely to cause that extra damage to completely cut through whatever it is I'm trying to cut. But something to be aware of. Now, the cons of the slash are, again, the pros of the thrust. If generally our organs are deeper inside of our body, and a lot of them are protected by bone structure, so a slash won't reach those. Where a thrust will sink in deeper. The length of the blade and then any kind of compression of flesh, it can go in pretty significant, a pretty significant depth, certainly enough to get to the heart or aorta, possibly other vital organs or blood vessels. So definitely an advantage of the thrust in reaching those targets and therefore causing the stop quicker. The other issue with the slash is if you just were to go all a slashing style, it doesn't translate well to improvised weapons. If I were to pick up a screwdriver or an ink pen, and now I'm trying to slash with these, it's not going to have an effect on anyone. I have to be able to thrust to achieve the goals that I'm looking for. So we have to understand those limitations. The other issue is economy of motion. A slash can degrade into a wide motion, whether from lack of training. Once you get into that adrenaline state, you're getting wild with it, but that can be trained for slashes to be much tighter, and that's something you should work on. But thrusts tend to be much more economical. Straight out to the target, straight back, and less openings in your structure for someone to capitalize on, whether they're empty-handed or with carrying a weapon. Now, so those are some of the pros and cons of each, and some of the advantages and disadvantages, so we understand them. Now let's look at the weapon itself, the blade, a little bit. So again, we're talking about practical blades that somebody's likely to carry or possibly pick up. Just general stuff. We're not going to go into all kind of blade geometry or anything like that. You can look that up online. But a thin, pointy blade is really good for thrusting. There's just less friction there, and it's just going to penetrate, pierce much easier. Some blades are made where thrusting, just because of the structure of the blade. So we have like this is a trainer of a TDI knife, but you can imagine a punch tag or something along those lines. This TDI knife, you can slash with it, but you don't have much surface area, and it's bent inwards. You got to kind of catch the right angle, and you have to hold it at an awkward angle. It's not really made for that, but it is made for thrusting, just punching motions. Very simple, and can be very effective. Same concept holds true for, say, a karambit. If I were to hold it this way, again, the blade is curved inward. I would have to turn to get a hold of this. And I mean, not that it couldn't work, but it's not really made for that. It's really made well for thrusting and ripping. Now for slashing, something with a large belly comes in really handy. If this blade were reversed, and say this was like a trailing tip type blade, this was all edge, you would have a larger surface area to catch that slash with. So for something with a larger belly tends to do a better job of slashing. For me, I like a clip point most of the time. Good general purpose blade. It's got enough belly for slashing. Good tip design for thrusting. So you really can't go wrong with that. But a drop point is also pretty good, and there are a lot of different blade attributes. You need to go and handle those different blades, move with them, get a feel for the qualities of each, and what they're good for. So the question of what's better, if you've watched my other videos, you probably know by now that it's not really about what's better or worse. It's just about understanding the why of each, the advantages and disadvantages of each, so that we can be a more complete fighter by training all of those and understanding where they fit into our game and why they fit into our game. So that's just a rough overview. Train safe and stay bladed. Okay guys, if you enjoyed that video, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'd love to hear your opinions on what the advantages and disadvantages are to you in thrusting or slashing.